In 2019, the Department of Tourism partnered with QC to boost inclusive sustainable tourism for QMC, involving architect Jericho Adriano for a redevelopment master plan fully aligned with their shared advocacies for inclusive sustainable tourism, for human development and empowerment, for urban farming, for cultural awareness, for historical reverence, for clean air, for walkable cities, for commuter mental wellness, for servant leadership, and for maximum regreening. Notably featuring Paris-inspired radial visual corridors centered to the park's actual focal point to the iconic Tri-lon, flanked by sidewalk cafes with romantic views of the iconic epitome of the promise to love till death do us part. Maximized regreening with pocket Miyawaki forest reserves and mandatory green roofs for all proposed structures in the park, for the City Hall complex, and for the MRT stations. Ensuring that every equivalent square meter of footprint that our proposed structures borrow from nature shall be duly returned to nature right on top of their very own roof decks. Green-roofed Swerve-Free PUV terminals welcoming commuters that beautify the park's neglected outer perimeter while decongesting the root cause of traffic along Elliptical Road. As shown to everyone every day by Waze, Feng Shui, and Pamahing cures for the sacred memorial grave. A tripartite freedom arch on Kalayaan Avenue, to commemorate our July 4th independence that Quezon fought so hard for. A pandemic frontliner monument at East Avenue, to honor our modern heroes working here and abroad. A true North moral compass monument at North Avenue, serving as a guide for our daily life decisions. And a moral victory monument shaped iconically like the Philippine eagle, the dove of peace, or the Philippine flag to maximize its green-roofed shelter while minimizing its ecological cost and footprint, to positively boost cultural, historical, and sports tourism, to offer a delightful country club sporting lifestyle for Q citizens, to stimulate the Bilbao effect for the city, to perfectly complement the majestic Quezon Shrine, to pamper commuters with a grand circle station, and to uphold Manuel Quezon's proclaimed vision for a city that is aesthetically the showpiece of the nation and the epitome of culture and spirit of the country. A win-win all-inclusive everybody happy QMC master plan for all of us. For history and culture, for the people, for the environment, for sports, for City Hall, and for our dear mayor.
Personally, maganda because yung everything is green, you're bringing back the plants, hindi na magulo, pedestrian and people-friendly, maganda tingnan, alam mo, maraming tubig, and so on.
But this was rejected by the city architect department head, mandating that the Quezon Monument should be the only notable structure in QMC, contriving a false sense of propriety against building anything big or iconic in the sacred park, contradicting QMC's original master plan to include similarly notable public amenities to accompany the monument, forsaking the multi-decade struggle of the Quezon family descendants to safeguard the QMC covenants, brazenly overruling Aurora Quezon's non-negotiable mandates for her husband's memorial.
The entire reason, for example, that my grandmother gave permission for her husband's remains to be moved to QMC was not that there would be a monument, but that there would be a museum, a library, and a theater.
Audaciously contradicting Manuel Quezon's very own proclaimed vision for Quezon City as aesthetically the showpiece of the nation, and shortchanging the undeserving public of an iconic landmark amenity to be proud of and the delightfully aspirational lifestyle upgrade it brings. A contrived mandate so wrong that it literally contradicts QMC's entire history, and it robs us all of the hope and possibility of seeing anything notably good coming out from the sacred park, completely forgetting the fact that the very reason why the park is named after Quezon is to honor his memory, legacy, and his vision. And never was it ever intended to ironically deny, dishonor, shortchange, or desecrate them, right where the Quezon couple is enshrined. Nor was it ever named the city architect's memorial circle, promising to build a simpler playfield to supposedly rationalize project costs, deceiving even our dear mayor into believing this tenured architect's false proclamation and promise, but distastefully building instead this second admin office on this one and only viable clearing, robbing us all of a long-awaited playfield in this green zone, dishonoring the city's morally binding obligations for the Quezon Memorial, and converting the sacred Atin-To People's Park into the City Hall's admin-centric utility annex. This ought to be the public enemy number one of QC and QMC, because this has double-crossed all of us from enjoying an overdue playfield amenity, betraying even our dear mayor, and scamming all of us into settling for this, instead of this iconic landmark amenity that we are not undeserving of. The good news, however, is that upon learning about our rejected proposal, Manuel Quezon III himself anoints our moral victory monument alone to finally fulfill the forgotten commitments, moral obligations, and destiny of QMC.
For example, if the mayor has problems with parang masyadong grandiose yung idea sa kanya nung moral victory monument mo, which is actually a complex, you may want to consider turning it into those aspects. In which case, hindi na grandiose and babalik sa original motivation nung ano. Yun ang suggestion ko. Kasi sa amin, from the family's point of view, syempre, ayaw namin makialam masyado, but duty namin is to raise those agreements from the start.
And so we did. Then the moral victory monument is not just correctly appropriate, but also now imperative for fulfilling QMC's destiny as aesthetically the showpiece of the nation, the epitome of culture, and the spirit of the country. Likewise, a private angel investor serendipitously pledges to fully fund our rejected moral victory monument, essentially solving the entire funding issue used mainly to deny this iconic landmark, where none of our taxes would have to be spent for developing this through this heaven-sent public-private partnership proposal, making it finally possible and feasible for QMC to develop and live up to its morally overdue promises and envision destiny as the showpiece of the nation for public benefit.
It is true that overbuilding in QMC must someday stop sooner than later, as called for by righteously concerned environmentalists, but that time is not just yet for now. Not while completing these perpetually binding moral obligations are still imperative. Not while the overdue mandates are yet unfulfilled. Not while the spirits of the shrine are still unappeased and unsettled. And not until QMC lives up to its founder's vision as aesthetically the showpiece of the nation. That time will come someday soon, as only after completing the morally binding obligations we owe to the enshrined can we finally stop developing our QMC. But for now, we simply cannot just quit on Manuel Quezon's vision.
This is our moral victory monument that we would all like to someday see in QMC, a delightfully world-class Filipino-designed landmark amenity worth fighting for. That we all can help revive and endorse to our dear mayor for reconsideration and encouragement. Through a world record-setting online design activism campaign challenge with your own family portraits and profiles, posing for our virtual postcards and posting daily on your profile pages from July 4th to celebrate Quezon's moral victory for our Philippine independence, until we celebrate Quezon Day on August 19th. With the hashtag QMC Moral Victory Monument, so that we can all someday consider this icon's redemption as our collective moral victory for our civic pride as Filipinos and Q citizens, reasserting what we can all proudly call our online people power.